adaptation of Assassin's Creed is weird. Hey everyone, this is Shinobi03 with a review that's not getting views because it's not about Jurassic Park, and people hate it when you do something different than the one you started with. Aladdin is one of the latest entries of Disney's live-action remake streak. Now, I'd argue Disney's live-action remakes were older than this, but that's another discussion. The remakes, of course, were mixed. Some of them were okay, some of them were bad, and some of them were Tim Burton movies. But then came Aladdin, a Disney remake that was actually considered good. How good, you say? Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 94%. On CinemaScore, the audience score is A on a scale from A+ to F. PostTrack give it an overall positive score of 90% with an average 4.5 stars out of 5. It became Will Smith's highest grossing movie in his entire career. Not Independence Day, not Men in Black, not even Suicide, My Makeup Was So Good I Won an Oscar Squad, Aladdin. It had a budget of $183 million US, and the box office is over $1 billion. So does that mean it was really that good of a movie? Or just the price of curious movie attenders who didn't know what to expect out of it? Let's get deeper into this. Oh, and I should inform you that this review is mostly opinionated. These thoughts are based on how I personally view this movie and franchise. You are allowed to disagree with me, and I'm not going to force you to accept my opinion. Deal? A little background here. Aladdin is... Actually, you know what? I think it's more appropriate for me to use the accurate name pronunciations here, so excuse me for saying names in a way you're not used to. Ala-ad-Din is one of the most famous stories of the 1001 Nights, aka Arabian Nights. At least how some people would like to think, since there's a debate among historians if this was really part of the original tales or a later addition. The original Disney animated movie is like many of Disney's adaptations. It's based on two sources. One is the original tale, which was of course vastly different. The other is an older movie or stage play. In this case, The Thief of Baghdad, a silent movie from 1924, later remade in 1940. The first is about a thief in Baghdad who is so savage he died before it was awesome, pretends to be a prince to kidnap the princess and forces her to love him. But then realizes he was a jackass and couldn't force her to love him, and went to redeem himself in a race against 3 other suitors, with one of them being the main villain, by getting a magical treasure and saving the city from the evil Mongols, and learns the meaning of hard work to earn his happy ending. The 1940 version, on the other hand, is about a young king of Baghdad named Ahmed, which was the fake name of the thief from the 1924 version, who lived an isolated life not knowing how his people lived. One night, his Grand Wazir Jafar suggests him to disguise as a peasant and walk among them, but he betrays them and threw him in the jail to be executed later. But he escapes thanks to a little thief named Abu, and they become buddies in their escape. But when they confront Jafar again, after seeing the Princess of Basra, he curses them before they get to reveal who he is to the Sultan, with Ahmed losing his vision and Abu turning to a dog. But the curse breaks when the princess is forced to choose Jafar as her man. The thief Abu finds a genie in a bottle who he tricks to serve him and grant him 3 wishes, then goes to a quest to find Ahmed, stop Jafar, and save the princess. Any of this sounds familiar? To say those 2 movies were a huge influence would be an understatement, as the original and remake, for better or worse, has codified majority of the tropes and stereotypes of the Arabian Nights stories, and many of them owes back to these movies without knowing it. Yes, most of them are based on the Western fantasies on the East, but the Thief of Baghdad movies made them famous, and Disney took heavy inspiration from them. And if someone is going to point this out to me, yes, I know there are claims that Disney also stole from the infamous masterpiece The Thief and the Cobbler, and some say it was another source of inspiration, but that's not our discussion here, and I have no intention on doing another Did Disney Steal This Thing series of videos. Disney's version was first released in 1992 during the Renaissance era, and not only it was a major hit, but it also started the trend of celebrity voice casting in animation that began with the late Robin Williams until it evolved to stunt casting to draw in the audience. The movie then spawned 2 more movies, a TV series, a Broadway musical, and a series of tie-in merchandises. But it had some issues. One of them is being mostly a negative portrayal of Arabs, most infamously with the song lyrics of Arabian Nights that had to be changed in later releases.
Where they cut off your ear. If they don't like your face, it's barbaric. But hey, it's home. Now how could a producer with a modicum of intelligence, just a modicum of sensitivity, let a song such as that open the film?
Other complaints include making Alauddin and Yasmin look and sound Western while everybody else looks as ugly as sin with heavy accents, which was pointed out by the late Roger Ebert in his review.
Hello, Aladdin. Nice to have you on the show. Can we call you Al, or maybe just Din?
Who are you?
My friends call me Al.
Al, no problem. You still got one wish left. Tonight, the part of Al will be played by a tall, dark, and sinister, ugly man.
I choose you, Aladdin.
Call me Al.
And you also have other misconceptions on the culture.
Do you know what the penalty is for stealing?
No!
كله يبان على الدين.
Now, as a Middle Eastern, I wouldn't say I grew up with Alauddin. Yeah, I had some fun for it, watched the series on TV when it was on, I owed the VHS for The King of Thieves, but I don't have much attachment to the original movie and didn't consider it top favorite for a long time. But I would say it helped me getting into the remake better since I didn't go with nostalgia goggles on. And because I was a kid when I first watched the original, I wasn't aware of the concept of negative stereotypes and we just enjoyed the character and cartoons thinking they were awesome. By that point, we were so used to the Arabian Nights imagery thinking they were the norm, like the Sinbad anime or other historical dramas, and we didn't question anything. Okay, maybe there's one thing I did question, and then it's the setting of Alauddin. The way I understood it, Agrabah is a stand-in for ancient Arabia, specifically Baghdad, but the characters and costumes looked more Indian than Arabian to me, and this caused a confusion to me. Later, I came to accept that the world of Alauddin is an amalgam of Arabian, Indian, Persian, and Turkish cultures all in one. A hodgepodge of Eastern cultures and ethnicities all blended into one. And now that I'm an adult, I started to notice the more problematic things that didn't age well.
Do you know what the penalty is for stealing?
So for those who use the if it's not broken don't fix it argument in regards to the remake, I'm sorry to say this, but the movie was already broken from the start. Which wouldn't be the last time in Disney's history. Pocahontas, Hercules, The Little Mermaid, Moana, Frozen, Mulan. If Disney makes a movie about a certain ethnicity or adapts a certain tale or historic event, usually the folks of origin would be the first ones to voice their complaints, while the Western world wouldn't care as long as the movie itself is within their liking. So what if Hercules is far removed from the myth to the point it uses the wrong name for the character? People love their Hades, right? Or what if Mulan butchers the story of the historic character? They want to sing Let's Get Down to Business again. Ethnic accuracy? Doesn't matter, it's a Disney movie for kids. And then comes the remake era, with Disney attempting to fix their old classics. And by fix we mean a Tumblr fanfic reject, a Tim Burton movie, social pandering failure, a Tim Burton movie, and a Tim Burton Batman Returns reunion. Villains given a different backstory to make them more sympathetic, and ended up alienating some of the audience of the original Sleeping Beauty. Tim Burton's acid trips, which you'd think would work in Alice in Wonderland, but ended up making it surprisingly dull and colorless. Beauty and the Beast tried to make what was already a feminist icon even more feminist by making her teach girls to read, which from what I heard is inaccurate since women did read at that time period, in addition on making a huge deal about a character named The Fool coming out as gay when all he did was a 1-second dance with another guy. Jungle Book took some liberties from the original, but it was praised for its acting and special effects and it's considered one of the better entries of the run. Needless to say, it has been a mediocre run for Disney. Financially, they're successful alright, but the critical reception hasn't been that great. And with the announcement of Alauddin, by that point people started to lose their excitement over it, expecting it to be yet another forgettable remake no one will mention again. But to everyone's surprise, the reception has been really good. In fact, It might have been the most positively received remake of the run so far, which some might say it's even better than the original. So what's the deal here? First off, you have the excellent casting and character writing. It's very rare to have what you'd call perfect casting, but Mina Mas'ud as Alauddin can go in the same category because he was great in the role. His looks, his voice, his singing, his movements, it was like I'm watching the animated Alauddin brought to real life. It can come uncanny. He captured the character so perfectly that when I first saw the movie, I had to remind myself that I'm watching a live actor portraying the character, not the animated character.
Gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat. Otherwise we'd get along.
There's not a lot of differences between the two in terms of writing, but Mina Mas'ud played more of the dorky side of Alauddin, and it's hilarious to look at.
It's just as much a pleasure for me, Your Highness. Sir, you look very serene.
It's a curtsy, not a bow. Stand up.
We have spices, golden camels, and spoons, tiny spoons. Spoons? How do they make them that tiny? We have jams.
Jam?
Jams!
Yes, jams. Yam jams, fig jams,
Yum jams.
and date jams.
The one big difference you could say is the scene when he chose to not wish Ginny free, which was changed from him not having confidence in his future to him being selfish about being a prince.
I'm serious.
Look, I'm sorry, I really am. But they want to make me Sultan. No, they want to make Prince Ali Sultan. Without you, I'm just Aladdin.
Hell, you won!
Because of you. The only reason anyone thinks I'm worth anything is because of you. What if they find out I'm not really a prince? What if Jasmine finds out? I'd lose her. Genie, I can't keep this up on my own. I can't wish you free.
And, you know, I was thinking about my last wish, and I can't do this without you. I know I told you I'd use it to set you free, but you heard the Sultan. I can't let everything that we've worked for fall apart.
So, you just never tell her the truth? You're gonna keep living the lie.
It's not a lie. People can change.
Oh, they can change, all right.
And that's a bad thing? Everything is better now. No one got hurt. You'd rather me be back on the streets, stealing to survive? I thought you'd be happy for me.
You can see it as a bad change for his character, but it still works within the context of the movie, where Ginny pointed out how bad it is to let the power affect you because you won't be satisfied.
Now, I usually don't have to go through all of this because by the time the guy gets to me, he pretty much knows what he wants, and it generally has to do with tons of money and power. Do me a favor, do not drink from that cup. I promise you there's not enough money and power on Earth for you to be satisfied. Good? So, what's your first wish?
Regardless, Mina Mas'ud as Alauddin? Perfect. Loved it. Want to see more of it. Better work on really fixing that one. Oh yes. Then you have Naomi Scott as Yasmin. There was some backlash and complaints about casting her since she is not of Middle Eastern origins but being half Indian. But this was fine by me, especially after seeing how they incorporated that to the movie by making her of mixed bloodline between two kingdoms, with one being a stand-in for India. However, I think her character writing is where she's best at. The original Yasmin was in line of traditional rebellious Disney princesses who wanted more in her life, more freedom, or choosing to be normal instead of being a royalty and escaping responsibility.
Father, I hate being forced into this. I've never done a thing on my own. Then maybe I don't want to be a princess anymore. Sorry, Raja. But I can't stay here and have my life lived for me. I ran away and I am not going back. I am not a prize to be won. Jump off a balcony. You were just playing with that overdressed, self-absorbed Prince Ahmed, weren't you?
But this Yasmin is the opposite.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're trying to do in this film, like I said, is add layers to the story, and with that comes Jasmine's character. And we're really trying to be appropriate to the times that we live in, and Jasmine in this film is a very strong, empowered woman. And what Naomi Scott is able to do, who plays Jasmine, she's able to bring that sense of stability and groundedness and empowerment to this character. And Jasmine's desire in this film is to return Agrabah to the place that it used to be. when her mother was still alive. Kind of like the kingdom that it used to be, the Lost Kingdom. And she just adds that dimension beautifully to everything that she does with this character.
She wants to be a figure of authority. She cares about her people. She wants to be the ruler of Agrabah out of love, not power. She cares about learning about the world outside the walls of her castle, and this should make her a very positive role model for girls. A girl can grow up from being a princess to a queen while still caring about education and love.
What foreign prince could care for our people as I do? I could lead if only...
My dear, you cannot be a sultan. Because it has never been done in the 1,000-year history of our kingdom.
I have been preparing for this my whole life. It's them, the people. They make it beautiful. And they deserve a leader who knows that. I don't know why I think it could be me.
Because it should be you.
Jafar is not worthy of your admiration nor your sacrifice.
I wish nothing but glory for the kingdom of Agrabah.
No. You seek glory for yourself. And you would win it off the backs of my people.
You don't need to sacrifice one to earn your happy ending like how many Disney movies used to preach with their princesses choosing a normal life instead of responsibility or authority in general. In Wreck-It Ralph, Vanellope becomes the princess of Sugar Rush after earning it, but she gives it away because it's not her, thus leaving the kingdom without a leader to manage its needs.
Come on, this isn't me. This is me.
Mulan was offered a high position in the council next to the emperor, but she gives that away because she prefers to stay with her family.
With all due respect, Your Excellency, I think I've been away from home long enough.
Oh gee, it's not like she could just, I don't know, visit them from time to time, or her family could move to live closer to her. Nope, this asshole keeps his job. Thanks, Mulan! You just taught girls all over the world that when you're offered to be a responsible woman leading her country in a position that allows you to help all women after experiencing what it felt like to be discriminated over your gender, turn it down because your old daddy misses you. I mean, woman who works and takes care of her family at the same time? That's so hard! And you have Elsa, who sings about running away, not taking responsibility for her actions, and declaring it to be a good thing to be free away from responsibility or people instead of taking responsibility for her actions and ruling her kingdom. Hold on, does that make Let It Go just another version of Hakuna Matata? A song about living a carefree life without responsibilities? Yeah, a lot of Disney's morals don't really work that well when you think about it. Also, just to point this out, yes, a female sultan is real, though the correct title should be Sultana. And unlike the original Yasmin, she helps a lot in taking Jafar down, being more active, using her authority on Hakim and the girls to not follow his orders just because he wished for the title instead of earning it. And she didn't need to be demeaned or heavily sexualized or turned to Jafar's love slave to do so. Ew. Then you have Marwan Khanzali as Jafar and... Okay, this one I want to say was a miscast. Writing the character on itself was as great as the rest. The original Jafar was a standard I want power and I want your girl because mwahahaha I'm evil kind of villain. This Jafar is given a better background and a better motive as here he wants political powers for A. He wants Agrabah to be seen as a powerful kingdom, not to be intimidated by others and expand his powers by conquering other kingdoms. And B, he hates to be seen as second best. To be called that is his berserk button, and that's why he wants to be the top of the hierarchy system where everyone is below him.
I do not understand what could possibly be in that cave that could help a man as great as you. You are already second only to the Sultan.
Second? Uh-oh! Who's in trouble now?
I also like the angle they took in making him a dark reflection of Alauddin, telling him they come from the same background as street thieves and Alauddin is capable to end up like Jafar if he followed his steps, thus giving them a more personal connection. Especially that Jafar confronted Alauddin as he is, not in his old man disguise. The reason I say Marwan Khanzali is a miscast is because he's not that intimidating as the character. Maybe it's his high-pitched voice, maybe it's his unimposing beard, but he didn't come across as a person to be scared of. Now I know they went with this because the original was obviously evil looking, you need to be blind not to see that,
My most trusted advisor.
But just because he's handsome looking, that doesn't mean he can be intimidating. Meanwhile, you have Nu'man Aqqar as Hakim, who looks and sounds more intimidating than Marwan, yet his character turned out one of the nicest and most honorable side characters in the movie. But it doesn't end there. Jafar was also underutilized here. Animated Jafar had greater magic powers. He had a magical device that let him find Ala-ad-Din to be his diamond in the rough. He had an epic battle with Ala-ad-Din. He even had a little musical number. And all of that got taken out of the remake. The best thing they did here is not going the cliched writing of making him the one who killed Yasmin's mother, because if they did, that would be a huge negative point to give. Well, just to say this bit was hilarious.
You're nothing without your stuff! Nothing!
But then you remember animated Jafar had more funny moments with him, either his deadpan remarks or his argument with Iago, but I think this is also his biggest flaw here. Up until he got the lamp, Jafar was taken very seriously. He was colder and more restrained, but when he got his powers, it's kind of hard to take him seriously when you see him looking like this and make puns left and right.
Princess, your time is up! Don't toy with me! Things are unraveling fast now, boy! Get the point? I'm just getting warmed up!
Oh boy, he's cracked. He's gone nuts. Jafar!
And in Return of Jafar, he turned to this. Marwan Gonzalez's portrayal, while less intimidating, he doesn't let his new powers turn him to a loose screw, and he didn't lose his dignity by turning to an old lady for a gag, so that's another thing he did right. Speaking of Iago, he also received a heavy downgrade from Jafar's sidekick to Jafar's pit. The most amazing thing he did was turning to a Ruh by Jafar's new magic, but nothing else to make him memorable. Alan Tudyk is no Gilbert Gottfried, and his portrayal was very weak, and it makes no difference if he voiced the character or brought a regular parrot repeating whatever the actors say.
Thief! Thief in the palace!
Thief in the palace?
That's what I said. Thief!
What have you seen, Iago?
Diamond in the rough.
Cave of Wonders. The lamp. The lamp. Jeez, where'd you dig this bozo up?
I'd say they did this so they don't give Will Smith a competition the same way Gottfried and Williams had in the original. And speaking of which, yeah, let's talk about the blue elephant in the room. No, not this one.
Thunder power!
There, I made the JoJo reference. Happy?
Yes, I am!
When Will Smith was announced as the genie, everyone said the same thing. Will Smith will be the worst thing about the movie. Will Smith will ruin the movie. Will Smith will never beat Robin Williams. This is an insult to Robin Williams' memory. The first image revealed as the character didn't make things better either. First they complained that he wasn't blue, then they complained that he was blue. Everyone walked into the movie expecting the worst to come, but the result was the opposite. Will Smith as Genie is one of the greatest things about the movie, and everyone who had doubts about his performance took it back when they saw it. Will Smith stole the movie, and I do mean stole the movie, and not what Captain Marvel haters think when they say Goose stole the movie just because they have a hate boner for Brie Larson. I now hereby agree to not use the word boner with a female character in one sentence because it's sexist and offensive to women. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's not what I meant when I used that word in that context. Man, people are getting too sensitive these days. As I was saying, Will Smith's performance was amazing and everybody loved it. Reason? He wasn't imitating Robin Williams. Robin Williams' Genie was overly wacky. His humor was based on fast-talking one-liners, impersonations, and random pop culture references. But I think this is also why many people didn't like it. His humor to them was just out of place and distracting, and it's the result of Robin Williams ad-libbing his role and then build the genie around his jokes instead of using a direct script.
Alright, how do I look? Like a vampire on a day pass.
And when you compare his humor between the first movie and King of Thieves, you can see how unrestrained he was in the latter, as if Disney was scared to stop him or give him directions after they screwed him over once, and that's why his humor is overboard and relentless with many, And I do mean many impersonations and references, it reaches borderline and knowing them funny.
Genie!
It's a joke. I do that.
But at the end, it was ultimately Robin Williams' character. And that's why a lot of imitators pale in comparison, because they wanted to capture that same effect.
I'm losing to a rug.
I'm losing to a bird!
Will Smith's Genie, on the other hand, while humorous, displays more wisdom in his character than humor. He started out as cynical and sarcastic when he didn't believe Alauddin, as in the poor boy in rags to be his new master, but gradually opens up to him and acts like a mentor figure for him, teaching him about the danger of greedy wishes and to be honest about himself, as well as how it's important to word his wishes carefully, because there's a lot of gray area in that.
A lot of gray area in that wish.
Which is one of the best additions about this movie if you ask me. The notion to be very specific about your wish, or it will backfire at you. Either wasting it on something stupid and totally not what you asked for, or something that may cause your demise. The gray area thing also makes for a secondary challenge for the characters in trying to figure out what loopholes they could find and abuse when needed. Like Alauddin making Genie think he rubbed the lamp to make his wish to escape the cave, when all he did was putting it behind his back to make it look like he rubbed it.
Ooh, no monkey with the lamp trick. Never seen that one before.
There are two other scenes where you can see the difference between the two genies. First is when Alauddin was drowning. The animated genie was making his jokes as if he's not taking the situation seriously, which in turn makes the viewer unsure how to take the situation. Is the viewer supposed to be concerned about Alauddin's safety, or laugh at Genie's jokes? If Genie is not taking this matter seriously, why should we? Doesn't help how this scene was just too quick and didn't have enough tension behind it. Also, it made the viewers debate if that really did count as a second wish or Genie acting on his own, since Alauddin didn't say it nor was he conscious when his head nodded, but Genie took it as a wish anyway and didn't tell him that it counted as one after regaining conscience. In contrast, the remake Genie, not only he knew instantly the weight of the situation and didn't waste time making ill-timed jokes, but he also needed to figure out how to save Alauddin without verbally wishing to be saved by coming up with another loophole. And since this moment was taken seriously, it was also longer, thus it creates more tension and makes the viewer worry about Alauddin's life. And to see it off, Genie informs him that he used a second wish and Alauddin accepted the fact, so no debate here.
It actually cost you a wish.
Whatever it cost. You saved my life.
The other moment is at the end when Alauddin tricks Jafar into wishing to be Genie. Animated Genie was clueless in what's going on and didn't catch on to Alauddin's plans at all.
Al, what are you doing? Why are you bringing me into this? The boy is crazy. He's a little punch drunk. One too many hits with a snake.
I wish to be an all-powerful genie!
All right, your wish is my command. Way to go, Al.
But remake Genie understood and knew what Alauddin was going for and played along his scheme. Especially with the whole grey area again and tricking Jafar to be the most powerful being, but not specifying to be a genie.
I wish to become the most powerful being in the universe.
Which is a callback to this moment.
I never said I was all-knowing. I said I was all-powerful. The most powerful being in the universe.
And that's how they were able to beat him, which wouldn't have worked if he specifically wished to be a genie, because he'd be aware of the trade-offs for that one. The character's weaknesses, as I see it, is when he mimics Robin Williams' cartoony style of humor, but when Will Smith does his own thing, it is phenomenal. Robin Williams is irreplaceable, but Will Smith made his genie his own genie.
I'm the genie of the lamp. I can sing, rap, dance if you give me a chance. Oh!
Moving on, another reason why people were skeptical on Will Smith's performance is the announcement of giving his character a love interest. But thankfully, that didn't end up as the movie's killer, because Nasim Pedrad as Yasmin's handmaid Dahlia was a real delight in the movie.
These are from me to you.
Could you excuse me one moment?
Wait, just...
That's what people say about me. Genie.
My favorites. I accept. Please continue.
Usually when a remake adds a new character that wasn't around in the original, it makes them feel shoehorned in and don't fit with the rest, but Dahlia doesn't feel shoehorned and her scenes with Yasmin flows naturally. The other reason why I say she is a delightful character is because she doesn't follow the stereotypical stern, overprotective killjoy maiden who bans Yasmin from doing anything not royal. Instead, she comes across as Yasmin's best friend and sister who encourages her to do what she likes.
If you had to marry a useless prince, you could certainly do worse than this one. He's tall and handsome, and yes, he's a little dim, but you're just getting married. It's not like you have to talk to him. But you'd prefer that boy from the market.
Also, her relationship with Ginny is as lovely as weird as it looks like. But you know she did really love him because she didn't reject him after knowing who he really was. Confused? Yes, but she didn't care. She wants to be with this amazing man, and she got her wish of having children as seen in the intro and ending. And can we appreciate that they had her and at the same time didn't write Raja off the script? Yeah, the fans worried she'd completely replace the tiger, but Disney managed to keep them both at the same time, unlike other remakes where they felt like removing iconic characters for a reason or two. The rest of the characters, I don't have much to say. Naveed Dagaban as the Sultan was okay, but the original character wasn't really that special. Unless you consider his fear of losing his daughter after the death of her mother an improvement over being a childish bumbling father. Nu'man Akar as Hakim was great improvement over Rasul, but he didn't get much screen time, and it's a shame because his stand against Jafar in that one scene was what made me love his character. Abu was the same, but less cartoony. And Corbett is the same and didn't get any significant changes. Oh, and then you have Billy Magnuson as Prince Anders. Yeah, this guy you may find a hard time looking for his fans because he's not that popular of a character, mainly for being a shoehorn token white character. And I admit, I felt the same when I first saw the movie. But looking at this movie again, I think he doesn't deserve that much hate. For one thing, he didn't do anything that horrible and wasn't a crucial character for the narrative, nor was he an obnoxious comic relief character who overstays his welcome. The other thing is, since he comes from a European-based setting, the Kingdom of Scanland, which I'd assume is either based on Scotland based on the name or Scandinavian based on his accent, it makes the world larger and not just Middle Eastern or Asian based. And lastly, he is a nice guy. An idiot, but still a nice guy. Especially when you compare him to Prince Ahmed in the original, who won't think twice about whipping children and humiliating Aladdin in public.
Look at that, Abu! It's not every day you see a horse with two rear ends.
Now let's talk about the setting, and what can I say? It looks beautiful. The alleys, the castle, nothing looks cheap or fake here. When I first saw the Cave of Wonders, I thought it looked lacking compared to the animated version. But looking back at that one, it wasn't as good as I remembered. I remember the cave in the animated version being more colorful and glittering with many kinds of eye-catching treasure, but I look at it again and it's mostly ugly yellow and nothing but golden yellow that easily blends with the ground, so you can't tell what is gold and what is sand. You look at this shot and see the magic carpet and the ruby in the chest, and they pop out because they're different colors. Why wasn't the whole setting like this? And the lamp area is this dark blue. It's still brighter than the remake, but not as colorful as I originally thought. The cave in the remake, here's something I do like. Yes, it's darker than the animated cave, but what I like here is how the light beams shine on the various treasures in the area as Aladdin walks closer to the lamp, as if it's really testing your temptation to not take these sparkly diamonds that glitters under the light. Plus, there is clear contrast between the treasure and the ground, which makes it easier to size up the amount it shows. The rules are a bit confusing though. Jafar first says you are allowed to touch but never take anything.
But take no other treasure, no matter how sorely you are tempted. Remember, take nothing but the lamp.
Touch nothing but the lamp.
This fixes the plot of being okay to touch the carpet in the original, and earlier on when Abu made this little accident, and later with Corbett knocking off some coins. But then comes the ruby moment, which differs from Abu taking an obvious bait in the animated version to it falling by accident, and then he gets mesmerized when it falls and catches it. Aladdin made it fall from its original place by accident like with the gold plate, but the cave did not react to it until Abu held it in his hands, in which it says, "Touch the forbidden treasure." Was there like a time limit for the object to be touched before the cave decides that you took it? The escape scene is more epic looking in the animated movie, but since it used early 19 CGI, It made the scene look like it came out of a 3D amusement park ride. Also a video game level baiting. Who am I kidding? The remake also looks like a video game level baiting moment. Except one is a platformer, the other is a quick time event. The costumes. These gorgeous looking costumes. Yasmin's original inaccurate belly dancer outfit can go straight to the trash bin. Look at these dresses! Look at them! This is how royalties should look like, not in what is equivalent to a prostitute outfit. Her outfit here looked good, why wasn't this her default one? Yeah, they threw the blue outfit as fan service and publicity photos, but her other dresses look far better in my opinion. Though, I do like the peacock theme they used in the blue one. Even if the original blue outfit wasn't politically incorrect, it's still bland looking. And I think the fact her outfits kept changing with each movie and later Disney makes even more modifications to the original to make it look more ornate and regal, changes the other Disney princesses didn't receive, makes this point fall even harder. Even the gods look more dignified than the original with their new armor. Additional cultural fixes the movie had done. First is replacing the prostitutes with girl students. Believe it or not, women were allowed to learn at schools. Islam taught the importance of learning until extremist fundamentalists twisted that idea and somehow resulted in the stereotype of Muslim women can't learn, that sadly still goes on in some countries in the world. Speaking of which, did you know women perform better in education than men these days? Jamal the merchant is not threatening Yasmin with cutting her arm for stealing. While the Quran does mention arm cutting as penalty for stealing, it's not as simple as what the original Aladdin went with.
Do you know what the penalty is for stealing?
There are trials of law where they assess the situation with an officially appointed judge. That means not anyone can pass judgment in these situations, and then they decide if the thief is let free if it was a mistake or out of need, or they execute the arm cutting if the crime was severe, or the thief never reforms from his past thievery, or his thievery hurt people in the process, which is a big no-no. Plus, Islam taught the importance of forgiveness and let things slide if no one got hurt. By the way, this practice is pretty much abandoned in favor of simple jail time in modern days. Maybe 1 or 2 countries does it, but not everywhere. Slavery is not mentioned here. The line was removed from the Prince Ali song, and it makes sense when you think about it. Genie hates being a slave, so it would be odd that he would sing on how awesome to have slaves, wouldn't you think so? And the same song, Sunday Salam is replaced with Friday Salam. May not roll the same as Sunday, but Friday is the Muslim holiday and day of rest, making it the accurate one.
Brush up your Sunday Salam.
Brush up your Friday Salam.
The Arabic language.
Great. You don't happen to know Arabic, do you?
It's not fake gibberish to pass as Arabic, or some random language they picked thinking it was Arabic when it's actually not. That is legit Arabic writing that I can recognize and translate for you. But it's still not a complete fix. This dance scene is not part of Arabic culture. A princess or lady of royalty dancing like this is considered obscene and highly inappropriate. And it looks like it's off a Bollywood flick, but not as crazy. Though when you remember this Yasmin is basically half Indian in the universe, I guess you could say it makes sense. In addition to Aghlaba already being a mishmash of cultures. I won't say female entertainers wasn't a thing, especially when you have folk dances in real life, but the dancers were regular dancers, not the royalties themselves. Yasmin wouldn't be the one dancing here. Now to the songs. Another thing this remake did right, and by that I mean not eliminating them and keeping the movie a musical. And they're mixed. Actually, let me rephrase that. The songs themselves are excellent. I have no problem with the songs themselves. You may hear a little auto-tuning here and there, but it's not as egregious or distracting like in Beauty and the Beast. But it's the dance numbers that are mixed. Let's start with the good. Sometimes all you need is an epic introduction for the movie. The Lion King have Circle of Life, The Hunchback of Notre Dame have The Bells of Notre Dame, and Aladdin have Arabian Nights.
Come on down, stop on by, hop a carpet and fly to another Arabian night.
For Will Smith's performance, the visuals and camera work, to the new lyrics and verses in which I give my personal seal of approval.
As you wind through the streets and the fabled bazaars with the cardamom-cluttered stalls, you can smell every spice while you haggle the price of the silks and the satin shawls.
I have this song in my phone and I listen to it when I feel like it. And you can see the audience loved it by going to YouTube and read the comments, and you'll see how they were really impressed by it and gave them hope on this movie. One Jump Ahead was also astonishing.
Gotta keep one jump ahead of the bread line, one swing ahead of the sword. I steal only what I can't afford, and that's everything.
From Mina Masood's performance to the amazing parkour that he personally did, he deserves to join the Assassins just for that.
First action. Second action.
Amateur. It just shows that he was born to play Aladdin in live action.
Gotta eat to live, gotta still to eat, tell you all about it when I got the time.
My work here is done.
I also like that he's accompanied by Yasmin in this version, making them bond further beyond saving her hand and humiliating herself in public by acting crazy.
Tragic, isn't it?
The original is still good, but I don't know, is it just me or is Brad Kane singing his lines like he's running out of breath?
One jump ahead of the slow pokes, one skip ahead of my doom. Next time, gonna use a nom de plume. One jump ahead of the hitman, one hit ahead of the flock. I think I'll take a stroll around the block.
Then you have everyone's favorite, A Friend Like Me, where I think it's visually the best song out of the bunch. The reason for this is because it takes advantage of Genie's magic, and that makes it more animated and stylish than the rest of the songs.
Can your friends do this? Can your friends do that? Can your friends pull this? Out of their little hack.
In contrast, Prince Ali looks and sounds a bit slow and restrained. Because it's live action and Genie isn't utilizing his full magic like in A Friend Like Me, the characters aren't elastic or hyper as the animated version, and nothing too crazy happening here unless you count Genie's giant hat.
This is a big hat.
No, that is not a big hat.
Doesn't make the song bad, but as a dance number, it falls short. One Jump Ahead was also slower than the animated version, but not that much, and it still shows more physical action and it doesn't stick to just one location, so it's still exciting to look at, while Prince Ali sticks to one location with not much variety. Also, this moment was a little too long for what amounted to a weak punchline.
We're waiting for you. We're not going till you go. You can do it. There it is. Prince Ali.
A Whole New World is okay. I wasn't that fan of the original song, so it doesn't make much difference to me. But I will say Disney missed an opportunity by not teasing Mulan in the trip to China that didn't happen here. Jafar didn't get a song number, so that's disappointing, but Yasmin gets a new one named Speechless. Which, now that I think about it, how come she didn't get a solo song in the original? That's like rule number 1 in the Disney Princess rulebook. You're telling me Mulan and Esmeralda, who are not princesses, get their own solo songs, but Yasmin, a Disney princess, didn't get to have one?
You're speechless, I see.
It's great sounding, especially the second part where you can feel Naomi Scott pulling all her emotions and letting her rage out, making it such a powerful song.
As I know that I won't go speechless, trying to lock me in this cage. I won't just lay me down and die. I will take these broken wings and watch me burn across the sky.
But I think its placement at the end felt a bit forced, like the makers forgot to add it and they needed to put it somewhere. And the fact it was all in Yasmin's head didn't help making it less shoehorned. Still, it's a great song and certainly something the original movie was greatly missing.
Cause I know that I won't go speechless. All I know is I won't go speechless. Speechless.
And these are my opinions on Guy Ritchie's 2019 Aladdin's remake. Personally, I loved it. Some missteps here and there, but the overall experience was far better than expected. I walked into this movie optimistic, but not expecting much, and walked out amazed of what I got. Is it better than the original? To me personally, and I do mean to me personally, and I'm not forcing you to accept it, but I say it is. This is a remake done right. It took a lot of issues the original had, and I mean real issues, and actually made real fixes, and made more effort in making it look as authentic as possible. It gave it its own touch while respecting the original, and didn't make it a complete one-to-one reshoot with flat acting or heavily replicating Robin Williams' humor. The casting choices were mostly great, and the writing was an improvement in many aspects, except for the villains in my opinion. My initial score for the movie when I first saw it was 7.5 out of 10. Now that I gave it a better look, I think I'll change it to 8.5 out of 10. There are still some imperfections that I still think they are, but I'll be damned if this doesn't go as one of the best remakes ever and one of my most favorite movies of the year. With all that being said, I have to ask this question. Is this Hollywood's best attempt for a positive portrayal of Arabs? Outdated stereotypes and fairy tales?
You know, I grew up watching this film. It was playing on at the house all the time, as I'm sure many Middle Easterns, they could only kind of identify with this one movie and these few characters.
Let me get real for a bit here. Hollywood doesn't have a good record at positive portrayals of Middle Easterns. They're all negative stereotypes, and should be as unaccepted as blackface or the magical Native American. Even the Asian Kung Fu master is starting to be considered a dated stereotype. The world has evolved and moved on, yet these stereotypes are still there. And when this is the most positive image they've produced, it just makes me sad. Middle East is far more than just people living in mud igloos or oil sheikhs, or terrorists or extremist fundamentalists. The Middle East is now a great power in economic and technological fields. They're not savages who don't comprehend the modern world. Yes, terrorists still exist. Yes, injustice is still around. But it's not exclusive to anyone. And for Hollywood to ignore the good side of the Middle East and focuses only on making the Middle Eastern the enemy for the American hero to save the day, it's unfair. If Africans made a big deal about Black Panther being this hero they've always wanted to represent them and not be another stereotypical black movie, then isn't it about time we get something similar? Sadly, even our local media is bad at it, as they focus on stereotypical overdramatic dramas and social commentary shows and fantasy-based historicals, but nothing measured that breaks the norms. I'm not asking for things to suddenly be politically correct to appease our desires. I'm asking for positive portrayal that comes naturally and not forced like having a token Arab character. Some progress is made over the years, but it's still a long way to go. Will this day come? I don't know, but we can still hope for a better future, not just for Arabs, but for humanity. But for now, we're having this fairy tale to give us a positive image. And one last thing to add, if you like this movie, or you're a fan of Aladdin in general, then I recommend for you to check out the 2006 documentary Real Bad Arab, How Hollywood Vilifies the People, directed by Sud Jali and presented by the late Jack George Shaheen Jr., the author of the book of the same name, where he analyzes and breaks down the multiple demeaning imagery of Arabs and Muslims in Hollywood's long history of filmmaking, and how it evolved from the desert thief to the suicide bomber terrorist.
For 30 years, I've looked at how we, particularly when I say we, image makers, have projected Arabs on silver screens. In my latest book, Real Bad Arabs, How Hollywood Vilifies a People, I looked at more than 1,000 films. Films ranging from the earliest, most obscure days of Hollywood to today's biggest blockbusters. And what I tried to do is to make visible what too many of us seem not to see. A dangerously consistent pattern of hateful Arab stereotypes. Stereotypes that rob an entire people of their humanity. All aspects of our culture project the Arab as villain. That is a given. There is no deviation. We have taken a few structured images and repeated them over and over again.
You are hostages of the Holy Freedom Party.
Whether one lives in Paducah, Kentucky, or Wood River, Illinois, we know basically the same thing.
Listen to the sound, Jesus, of altar.
We know the mythology. The mythology, namely Hollywood's images of Arabs.
When you cross the mountains of the moon into our country, Mr. Tyrone, you will be stepping back 2,000 years.
We have this fictional setting called Arabland, a mythical theme park. And in Arabland, you have the ominous music, you have the desert. We start with the desert, always the desert as a threatening place. We add an oasis, palm trees, a palace that has a torture chamber in the basement. The Pasha sits there on his, posh cushions with harem maidens surrounding. These one-dimensional caricature, cartoon cutouts used by filmmakers as stock villains and as comic relief. And so over and over we see Arabs in movies portrayed as buffoons, their only purpose being to deliver cheap laughs.
That's all for today, and I'll see you next time. For the love of God, woman, eat a sandwich or something! Of course, I'll share your mine, but someone keeps eating all my food!